I feel like whenever we talk about the digital physical split, it's usually bad news for people who just like buying physical video games, putting them up on the shelf, and then be able to take them down and pop them in their system whenever they want to play a game and not rely much on servers. I say much because you may still need to download an update, and then at times you still have to download half the game because the company decided not to put it on the Blu-ray for whatever reason. But nonetheless, Nintendo with their cartridges, typically you put the cartridge in the system and the game starts right up, barring maybe a tiny update. Either way, there have been a lot of discussions around how digital is taking over, eclipsing hard disk sales, and it's been very unfortunate to see for really just old people like me who still like buying a physical copy of a game. But we may actually have some good news here for collectors, as we did have Nintendo release their investor relations or their investor report and stuff. And while I did want to go over that more deeply in a video, I think tomorrow, because there's quite a bit going on there, and I think it sort of sets the stage for Nintendo with their next generation announcement, believe it or not. I did want to look at some additional information that we had with their digital to physical split for sales, as I think there is one aspect that might be kind of getting lost just the way that they've presented it here. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. This is over on Nintendo's, this is like part of the pamphlet or like just the report they release for people to check out on their website, and it is mostly talking to investors or people who are interested in the sales and business aspect of their company. And it's quite thorough. There is a lot going on here when it comes to sell in, sell through, how each individual Switch system is doing. If you've been around the channel long enough, you've seen this, I'm sure, multiple times, as we typically will go over it in some way. But there is one slide that they show off consistently, and it has to do with digital sales. The situation Nintendo has right now, though, and really any company has, is you tend to sell just more stuff on your digital storefront. Like in general, think about how there are games that are only available digital. In fact, the eShop is swamped with games that are never going to see a retail shelf ever in its life. And you also have add-ons. That's a big thing. Subscription services that tally up money on the digital side. All of that, microtransactions, all that works in favor of digital overtaking physical very easily, actually. Like for most of these companies, it's like, wow, if you're at Sony and you're selling stupid amounts of microtransactions in Fortnite or Call of Duty Warzone, your digital receipts are going to be way higher. That's just the way it is. So we do technically have to separate the retail media from digital-only sales. And that is something that's actually happened here. And I think people are very happy to see some of the results, because you do hear about how, oh, it's 60-40 now for Nintendo. There's so much stuff coming in when it comes to the digital side of things. And even Nintendo does sort of point that out here, where they say, oh, here's like our packaged goods, where you know how you go into the store and you may be able to buy Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, a boxed copy, or you can walk over and you see a little card that's there, and you scratch the back off, you get a code, you punch it in, and you get the digital good that way. So they do point all of that out. If you say go in and buy the cartridge versus the card that you redeem on the eShop, as opposed to how you have things that are digital only, for example, like they have Kirby's, was that Dream Buffet, or the subscription services. They separate here because it is important, obviously, for them to know where they're going with their physical stuff. So the interesting thing here is Daniel Ahmed did actually make a nice little chart here for us, separating digital and physical, specifically for things that have a physical copy versus a digital copy. So think about anything that's just digital, that's all excluded from this data. And wouldn't you know it, for Nintendo specifically, this is the most recent, and they're going by calendar year for those quarters, not like a fiscal year, as we just finished up April, May, and June. That is Nintendo's quarter one fiscal year, because remember, their fiscal year starts April 1st. So while it is August now, it takes a while to put all this information together and present it to investors. But we can look at the most recent one with Q2 2024. So that'd be April, May, and June. 37% of sales on games that have a boxed or digital copy, 37.7% of that was digital, which means, yes, a majority of games on the Nintendo Switch that are available one way or the other, digital or physical, are being sold physically. And there have been concerns that we are going to have digital completely overtake physical in the next couple of years. I think for Nintendo, it's pretty clear. And again, just looking at something like this, they're not really on that path right now. I mean, you can look at this and say, okay, 2024 Q2 versus 2023. Yes, it's up 1%. You can also go back further where we have Q2 in 2022 about flat there, a little higher for 2021. So while they are working up technically in terms of digital sales overall, it's not at a rapid pace like we see with other companies. And yes, I am mostly referencing Microsoft here. Sony still kind of working in that regard, but even third-party companies, they are seeing digital start to overtake things completely, especially if it's a company like EA or Ubisoft, where they'll do things like ship half the game on the disc and then the other half digitally. It's hard to really recommend buying it physically then, because it still relies on having to download a large portion of the game from a server. But Nintendo still plays into the idea of these cartridges that, for the most part, have the entire game there available immediately when you pop it in. And I think that's going to be crucial going into their next generation to continue that trend. Have a cartridge that just has the game on it, you pop it in, minor update maybe, and then you start the game. So this chart should make you very happy if you're someone who likes to buy all of your games physically, because I'd say bare minimum here, Nintendo, yes, we'll have a cartridge on their next system, but just based on the slow rate of adoption here for digital when it comes to boxed retail copies, they might have another generation after that even. So if they, let's say they start their generation, their next generation, as we all assume at this point, and we have assumed for years now, but next year, 2025, they'll start the next generation. It's another, we'll just say 7 years to be safe for it. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if in 2032 we're looking at these charts and we're like, it's kind of like 50-50. So yeah, they'll probably do physical again. We could be dealing with cartridges. It sounds crazy with Nintendo or some other storage media. Maybe there's a big breakthrough up to 2040. Like, it's very possible, just the way Nintendo treats a lot of this stuff and sort of their approach to being able to get a game, pop it in, and play it immediately, that being a big deal for them, especially now with the Switch being a very fast system from startup to getting into the game, that they would continue that trend and it would actually keep consumers still on board for the most part with these physical copies. I still think the bigger concern would be these big box stores not necessarily seeing the value in having even a section in their electronics department for video games any longer, especially if maybe Sony or Microsoft start to move away from having retail presence before Nintendo. Where does Nintendo go then? Do they still have a section in the electronics department? Does like a Walmart or a Best Buy or Target move them closer to the toy section? That's something I'm unsure of, and that would be the part that would probably push Nintendo more away from physical copies of games, rather than just the industry moving in that direction. But this is at least good news, and I wanted to bring it to you guys because I feel like whenever we talk about the digital future, it seems to be kind of doom and gloom. There you go. We have data that at least is backing up the idea that Nintendo is all aboard the physical game wagon for another decade or so. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Are you someone who likes to buy your games physically on the Switch, or do you enjoy the convenience of having everything there loaded up on your SD card digitally? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.